All right, everyone. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's September 30th, 2020. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team and then showing them the ropes. If that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered, so feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/office hours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to the Office Hours channel, as well as follow up with an email that you can share with your team. So with that said, let's kick it off. Don't have too many announcements today. I just wanted to whet everybody's appetite for a few upcoming things that are coming out. We have a forthcoming Terraform Cloud module coming out, which is going to handle all the complexity of creating your Terraform Cloud workspaces with support for VCS and Kubernetes based agents as well. It's going to handle it's going to use it's going to present a number of foundational modules that you can use to do it yourself, or we have a kind of opinionated YAML spec that we use that you can adopt as well. And then also as part of that, we're going to work on a separate module, which is going to provision the Terraform enterprise agents on Kubernetes as well. And there's also a forthcoming Datadog module. So we have a Datadog module on Cloud Posse's GitHub right now, except for it was updated 2-3 years ago. So we're refactoring this to support a specification that is closer to Astro. So we've talked about Astro before. Astro is a project by Fairwinds. If I can get out of here. And Fairwinds has a pretty nice specification for how to define your monitors. And it looks like this. So we are implementing a module that does the same thing but in Terraform. So for the stuff that you don't want to deploy, for the stuff you don't want to manage this way in Kubernetes, you can still use the tool set that is familiar with for you. All right. Any questions on those two announcements? Or three announcements? Rob? You'll be first to see some of that stuff.
Good.
All right. And then variant 2. So variant 2 is a task runner. We've talked about other task runners and the purpose variant 2 fills for us as a general purpose task runner. So variant 2 is a project by Yusuke or Momoshu here, and it's pretty freaking rad. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a task runner that uses HCL to define all your jobs and parameters. It's not designed to replace Python or Ruby or Go or any of these things as your client language. It's designed to replace Make, or it's designed to tie all of that stuff together. So we've been working with Mumoshu on a contractual basis actually now to accelerate the development of variant 2 and prioritize some bug fixes. So he's just knocked down a whole bunch of issues for us. One has been the ability to pass globals between modules. So what's really rad about variant is that variant supports remote module specified by a URL to a Git repo. And I guess there might not be an example right here in the public documentation, but just like Terraform, where you can have modules that are hosted on Cloud Posse's GitHub, your internal GitHub, some other person's GitHub, you can do that with this task runner. And then you can compile it with the export command, variant export binary for your module, and now you have a little CLI that you can distribute for your team. So this was not working well with remote modules, so that was the other fix that Mumoshu pushed out for us in the past week or so. Let's see, add support for let's see.
So
and
the
the other
actual
thing is just
like binary that it creates, or like a shim one or something like that.
no, yeah. So it actually creates it. Basically, what it does is it generates some Go shim code that calls his library, and then builds that as a cross-platform binary based on Go.
Pretty cool.
So you can then distribute that to teams or as part of your infrastructure repository or however you want to do it. We ship it together with the geodesic image that we use with customers. But the idea is that you shouldn't have to run it inside a container. If you want to run it natively, you can do that as well. We are still working with one of our customers to get this stuff fully open sourced. Some of the other stuff that we're doing some workflows, but hopefully in the next month or so, I don't know how long it's going to take. We've been just ironing out a lot of the rough edges with a relatively new tool that needs some polishing. So announcements will be forthcoming when we have our client available for that. All right, so that was that announcement on Variant. I think there's been like DevOps Days Boston this week and maybe some other conferences. There's so many I can't keep track of it anymore. Any interesting announcements I missed?
HashiCorp is supposed to be announcing some big thing. I don't know if they've done it yet.
Yeah. Well, boy, are they stringing us along on that one.
They announced the color for the logo, which is very important and vital.
Oh, really?
Not the logo, the color for it.
The color for the logo. What is the color? This makes me think of no, long story.
A limeish green, I want to say. I don't know colors. I have a stylist for that, so. But it's greenish.
Interesting. I wonder if they're gonna. Yeah, I don't know. Any bets? Anybody have an idea what they're gonna release or announce?
Kelsey Hightower thinks it's a CI product that uses HCL.
A CI
Hosted Vault.
What was that, Zach?
Hosted Vault, maybe?
Hosted Vault.
Oh, hosted.
But
Vault.
you know, they did recently release
logo?
modules. Here, I'll post a link. But they released modules for sort of.
Yeah, they announced that yesterday. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
For Console Vault and what else? Nomad, I think.
That thing that no one else uses. No one uses that thing. So Nomad, that's right. Yeah.
Specifically said it's gonna be a new product, so I don't think it's gonna be a managed version of anything.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be new.
No one knows anyone that works in HashiCorp. Come on, that doesn't care about NDAs. No.
Yeah.
Few beers and it will spill out.
Yeah, it's a good way to get very quickly.
Come on, break an NDA in a public recorded meeting.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, don't have anything to add to that. My random guess would be some other security-related product, maybe in the identity space, maybe an application proxy or something, but don't know.
Or a Terraform, security check, like all these, like the ones that use OPA Rigo policies.
I mean, they have Sentinel, right? But I don't know if is there going to be like an open source version of Sentinel?
Does anyone know anyone who's actually using Sentinel?
No. I don't know.
No, no.
Yeah. It's but I've looked at some of the code, by the way. I've had the opportunity recently. It's like Python. It's not hard, but it's to say this policy as code is a misnomer. Like, you're not understanding what your policy is if you have it in this Sentinel code. So, but anyways.
That's interesting. I mean, because usually they do really build simple, polished tools in general. So
Oh, it's polished and it's simple enough, but it's like assigning, Active Directory permissions, rights on the back end where you don't see them. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like you can create them and assign them, but you don't see them in action. They're not something that's it's easy to understand the workflow of. But they do some cool stuff. So OPA is way easier.
So Zach, haven't seen you around for a little bit. I mean, like, what are the last three cool tools you've stumbled across? Because you are like the man.
Well, actually, like today I installed and I haven't gone too far with it, but there's like this new was it the GitOps toolkit from the Flux people?
Okay.
I know that they've released something fairly recently. I don't know how long ago it was, but I just found out about it, and it's to replace their Flux GitOps, like Flux. Basically, their version 1. They're going to version 2, and they're changing it to a couple controllers and a new binary. And so I've been tinkering with that a little bit, but for the most part, I've been way deep into GitLab and Vault, so I don't have a lot of good stuff for you guys.
So I mean, this is like the evolution of Flux.
Supposedly. So I didn't realize that until just today. So
Flux got a bit weird because they announced they were gonna merge with Argo CD and work on the base,
That's not
which was gonna
happening.
be
yeah, you ever see that code base? No
thing.
one's touched it in months. So.
No, it fell apart. That whole thing fell apart. It's not.
Yeah, it's weird. As far as I understand, the second version, which I think is this one, is going in a separate direction, but V1 was supposed to still do the merging thing with Argo CD, but high chance I'm wrong.
Yeah. So
also, I just went on Twitter, and at HashiConf, there are gonna be 2 new open source products that are not related. So 2 new things, not just one.
Wow.
Which is even more interesting.
That is interesting. Really interesting. When was the last big tool release from HashiCorp? Not a SaaS solution. I mean, Terraform is the last one pretty much, right?
Well, wasn't the Console Connect?
Console Connect was the last one, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, and then before that, there was Nomad.
Nomad, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's definitely been some ones coming out. It's interesting.
They bought Pulumi and they're going to create a new product with that.
Wait. They did. That's just you making stuff up.
Yes, just
news
that.
right there.
I was like, what?
Yeah. Oh, you know what though? That is pretty interesting. But there's CDKTF, and that was done in concert with AWS and HashiCorp. Would they come out with their own, TypeScript language for Terraform?
Ooh. Oh, to compete with both?
To compete with AWS and Pulumi and just put a nail in the coffin.
I don't want to learn something new, please.
Yeah. I'm not fond for that, but maybe that's what they would do strategically, just to nip it in the butt, so these things don't happen. So, like what you were saying though, with this Zach, with Flux now morphing into this GitOps toolkit, and it's reminiscent of what happened with JX as well, JenkinsX. How JenkinsX did a total refactor as well.
Yeah.
So much that it doesn't have any of the original same tools that they tied together to build it.
I challenge you to find a CLI tool with more parameters than JX. That's all I know. So, and sub commands. I mean, it's a crazy. It is just wild. So I tried to use that as a baseline example to understand how to write a Golang app for that has a pluggable type of argument. Start. No, I couldn't do it. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think I rant too often or complain that often. It's not my personality, but lately, man, I just feel so burned by refactors and deprecations on projects that we're using. And it's just like come all at once. And it's so tiring right now. Like we're about to do our 6th or like 7th re-implementation of Prometheus Grafana. Second one on Thanos, because like we started way back when it was a project by Michael at Ticketmaster, and then that got gifted to like CoreOS, or I don't know, CoreOS basically picked up the steam on that. Then it moved into Stable Charts. Stable Charts is going away, so then we decided, okay, we're just going to use the Bitnami ones. And now the Bitnami ones that we used in April or March or April are like no longer like they've deprecated or refactored those again. So now we can't reuse that again on the next implementation we're doing. So now we're going to use the official, if one can even call anything that anymore, the Prometheus community charts that also added Thanos support. So we were starting to implement that with Thanos, and then there's a PR that's going to totally refactor even how Thanos was implemented so that it would not be compatible. And it's like, oh, I can't take it anymore. Just trying to use like the stuff is so much in flux to overload that term that it is gnarly. Bitly, the Bitly proxy got thrown into Pusher. Pusher was using it. Then Pusher decided that they're going to create an organization. So now that's into its own organization. And then like Keycloak, the IDP, we've been using Gatekeeper with that. They decided they're going to fork Gatekeeper off into its own organization. I forget what it was called now. And that was going to be a partnership together with the Bitly guys to collaborate on the IDP proxy work. That partnership fell apart, and then they abandoned this the Gatekeeper project. And this is all in like the last 2 months, and it's so much of what our stack has been built on. So, the benefit, I guess, is when you build all your own tooling, you decide when things get deprecated.
True. Yeah. That sounds painful, dude. But even internally, you see these kind of problems, where, if you're not handling your libraries and shared libraries and things like that correctly, refactoring dependencies, you can end up with all these weird problems, if it's just not done well. But with all these outside teams, that you don't know and don't have control over, it makes it really hard. So
yeah, and not really clear visibility into the roadmaps and different projects. So.
And there is no SaaS product that can help you, or anything that can help you with this, because it's like, how can you are you going to monitor PRs and try to figure out what they say on the PRs to see if they're going to deprecate a feature? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Are you going to insource all the products to your own repos?
Correct.
That's
yeah,
way
that's right.
hard. So
way hard.
Exactly. That's not scalable either, and that's in the end that's why Red Hat exists, and companies like that provide the LTV releases.
The thing, get what you pay for.
fair.
What you pay for. Yeah, a lot. So, all right. So that was my rant on that. Thank you guys for empathizing.
It's a well-earned rant.
Let's get some questions. The good thing is we got a long library of questions here going back like 2-3 weeks of office hours or whatnot. I'm going to cherry pick some as we go through here, but one that I felt bad that we didn't get to last time was the question on WAF specifically. So that was one by Patrick. Patrick, are you on the line?
Yeah. Hey, how are we all doing?
Oh, we're doing well. Sorry we didn't get to it last time. Let's talk about it a little bit today. I'm going to pull up the thread here and set it up. So there are so many WAF solutions available today with different trade-offs. So I can't speak with too much experience on all of them. So that's why I think it's great to have all the people on the call today. We're about 25 people here. I'm sure somebody can chime in on most of these. I'll definitely chime in on the Cloudflare piece, and then I can even do a little demo on some of that stuff, and then we'll see here. And boy, come on guys, not now. Let me please do it.
+1 for Cloudflare.
Yeah. So most of the stuff I do is in GovCloud, and like ideally they like stuff to be like on-prem. It's not like a deal breaker. Like obviously it'd be easy to just like cut over DNS and do something like that. But it's also not a deal breaker. It's mainly just looking for the best, like something that offers flexibility and also like a GUI, like an interface.
Maybe like a template for the type of apps that you're trying to serve up, right?
Yeah, and so like we have a Terraform for the current for WAF version 1, and then I went to go upgrade to WAF version 2, and I was going to be the only one who could ever read it. Like the readability of writing the code for WAF version 2 is not like friendly at all. Like for someone else to just go scan and be like, oh yeah, let's add this rule exception here, you know? So
yeah, it's
once
like use mod security back in the day. It's like, good luck.
Yeah, it was archaic. It was not archaic, but it was, you had to know like special incantations and magic to make that stuff work right. So
yeah, and then Akamai's WAF was just mod security at the edge. At least back in the day, it was
with a huge cost.
I had experience with that with actually Kona. I actually did training on Akamai Kona. That shit is amazing. No matter what they use in the background, that Akamai Kona is just mind-blowingly good. It's just ultra flexible. And that's when I used to work in Electronic Arts, where we had attacks, I don't know, every second, millions of attacks a second. In a day, I think in a week, it was, I don't know, 300 million attacks or something like that of different kinds. It's just actually crazy how good and fast it is.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. So let's see here. So Andrew, you're working a lot with GovCloud. Andrew, what are you using for WAF?
I don't work at that level, so I don't use anything in like myself, but Akamai actually does sound familiar. I think maybe the DoD is using Akamai.
Akamai does have government, a WAF for the government solution, the GovClouds. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, there's a organization called DISA that maintains that entry point into the DoD network space. I think it's called GCDS. I don't know. I don't remember, but Akamai sounds very familiar. I think it might be what they use.
Okay.
Yeah, I personally migrated off of NetScalers for this kind of stuff in the past. And I'll just say one recommendation is always keeping a list of your custom WAF rules for whatever apps that you're running, and just sort of keeping that as code somewhere or whatever, because it came in exceptionally, it can be very useful outside the migration, just in reference and whatnot. So.
And so that's one of the things is with the AWS WAF, like I can't drill into exceptions like based off like strictly a load balancer without adding like tons of separate web ACLs. So like being able to fine grainly add exceptions, especially if we have like multiple apps like deployed to a single load balancer, and then it's like our exceptions become very broad where they're not as tightly.
Not effective.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, we just add an exception for /v1. Well, that gets applied to everything, and then it's like, well, why do we even have this WAF? Like.
Yeah, managing that, taking steps. So yeah, and it sounds like you have some pretty complex requirements around that, which is different than has been my approach with the WAF. I totally get, especially working with Gov, that you have some of those requirements. But yeah, let me show you what we've been doing with Cloudflare. I guess while I log in, anybody have experience with some of the other ones, like Signal Sciences? I see come up all the time. Sophos, F5.
My experience with Microsoft Unified Access Gateway count, or TMG, if anyone remembers that stuff, Threat Management Gateway. They dropped all those products like a bad egg so long ago, but I have way too much experience in them. So.
Second here, and just getting logged.
Guarantee you there's places still running them too.
How's Cloudflare's Terraform provider with the WAF stuff?
So don't have current experience with it. The Cloudflare Terraform support historically was bad, but they've been investing a lot in their provider.
Cool.
and it's actively maintained. So I hear good things with it.
We are just excuse me. We're just implementing Cloudflare. As you know, we have multiple separate environments, one for each client. So I actually just finished installing, I'm sorry, that was something else. But we got, I got our Terraform set up so that it's one manual update to the site to take the main CNAME or the main record, point that at Cloudflare, and then have Cloudflare point back to, our origin, our load balancer. Yeah. But basically, I just have a switch and a bunch of DNS entries. So like when we turn it on, it deletes the old A records in Route 53 to the load balancer and adds the new C names. And that has been, I'm going to do that in just a little while. So once we figured out what was going on, thought their docs sucked. But once we figured out what was going on, it's the classic thing. They've got a bunch of documentation, but like, pick one. It might be the right version,
Yeah.
what you're talking about. Plus, we only wanted to use the WAF. To some extent, it's a checkbox thing. But it has been relatively painless. We're still proving the concept.
So here's a little overview from how we have it on our properties at Cloud Posse. And there's first of all the managed rules, which is nice. So you can just turn on rule sets relative to the technologies you use that comply sometimes with certain standards like that. But the other nice thing is the ease of use for doing the custom rules for everything. And the expressions you can do with that are straightforward. But the biggest thing that I really love about Cloudflare is the JavaScript challenge that they can pop up. So we segment the traffic based on network blocks. So they support the different ASINs, and you can easily challenge swaths of the internet or easily permit networks like AWS to access your systems. My objectives, what I'm trying to block predominantly, are all the script kiddies, all the automation out there that is used to scan networks. And that's a pretty easy thing to block. The thing, like the JavaScript challenge with Cloudflare, for some of our own scraping stuff we've done in the past, yeah, it can be bypassed if you try hard enough. There are people who maintain libraries to help bypass it, but that means that whoever's doing the automated scanning has to have done the same thing as well. Also, the ability to drill into what's going on. You can easily see. So here's this happens to be a rule to permit. Let's take a look, a rule to block instead. It's more interesting, I guess. So here, permit, bypass, challenge, block. So let's look at requests that have been getting blocked to WordPress, for example. And we can easily see how it's broken down by these attributes. And then if we wanted to, we can easily, let's say this is one of our customers or something, we could easily add a filter to exclude them and block it. So there's always this trade-off, look, all we do is infrastructure as code. It's our bread and butter, right? But I think there's there's a balance between sometimes some of this stuff you need to manage through the UI, or at least you need to have the responsiveness of probably reacting to situation and doing it through the UI, but then you can always backfeed it back into your source control and Terraform that out again. Right now, we are not managing our Cloudflare with.
And yeah, so that's the thing. Like ideally, the team I'm on would have nothing to do with this, and the security team would deal with it. Because right now, everything's in Terraform, and the infrastructure, the IaaS team deals with it, and we want to be able to hand this off to the security team and let them decide what should be, excluded and whatnot. Yeah. So that seems like it would be a good solution if they would let us use it.
Also, I like solutions that exist at the edge as opposed to on your network. A lot of these solutions that you deploy on-prem, yeah, they're WAF in one kind of way, like just targeted systematic attacks, but they're not WAF in any of the denial of service attacks. Well, they try to be, but they'll never be as effective as a service like Cloudflare, which can do traffic shedding and rate limiting and all that other stuff.
As long as CenturyLink doesn't go down again.
Hey, you know, it's very trendy right now for major global services to go down for extended period of times. Everyone's doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Hope that added some context. All right. So next question here, which would be interesting. So yeah, Dale, are you on the call? Dale is a regular, but I guess he's not on right now. He had an interesting question. I'm sure all of us have, or many of us have looked into at some point. So the self-service catalog for Kubernetes, and there's a time and place for it. The time and place is like local development or like sandbox environments. But how do you present a service catalog to a larger organization of engineers to unblock central operations or things like that? How do you empower them with a very simple way to provision simple services under Kubernetes? So, so Dale asked this question. He came up with a solution that he found from CloudBees, was it? I don't remember. I'm gonna pull it up here. Let's see. Yeah. CubeApps. Has anybody toyed around with CubeApps? It looks pretty neat. I have some screenshots here. So it's similar to if you go to Helm Hub, hub.helm.sh. But the difference here is you can deploy this in your cluster, and users can click a button and deploy those apps to the cluster.
I've had experience with Rancher's ability to do this, and it's been
Rancher has something similar to that too.
It's been there have been pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
But overall, it's you can add your own catalogs and stuff too, which is kind of nice. So
yeah. I really don't like it for anything beyond sandbox environments because trying to systematize and codify how these things were created and who did it, and creates a whole new set of problems. But
you're talking about CubeApps, like deploying things from a catalog like this,
like a GUI service catalog.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it either. I'd rather put together a couple of Helm files.
Exactly. I think the Helm file approach is Helm file plus PRs is a better service catalog approach in the long run. All right. Well, Dale, no other no other tips than that. Rancher's obviously open source, but I think it's a pretty self-contained ecosystem there. I don't think you could just use Rancher's app catalog. I wonder, Bitnami has something, don't they have something as well? Bitnami service catalog. I don't know if they have a GUI for it though. Yeah. What were you saying, Andrew?
I was saying something that does interest me is something another group in my company is working on is putting together like some type of catalog such that you can deploy something to a managed Kubernetes cluster that is like multi-tenant and have billing able to be tracked back, so it's, I want a Jenkins master. Okay, fine. It is, $500 a month or whatever, and we manage all of it, and, click yes to proceed or whatever, and then everything just kind of gets done. Like, so we're working on something like that.
Have you?
That looks interesting.
And you've also looked into KubeCost for helping implement chargebacks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of different technologies for AWS and then Kubernetes.
So another question that's a pretty frequent question that comes up is how to use Terraform to manage Lambdas with your infrastructure or your applications. I think that this is an interesting one to talk about because I think there's a few different ways to think about Lambdas or how Lambdas are used. Abel, are you on the call by any chance? All right. So we're talking about specifically Lambdas on AWS, and I feel like there's probably three top level categories kind of. You have the glue Lambdas. You have the Lambdas that you use as part of your infrastructure. Perhaps you're deploying some stuff with to ECS, and you need some other configuration stuff that happens after you do a run. Perhaps you are deploying Lambdas together with your CloudFront distributions. That's another way. The other way is you have your actual applications. Like maybe the core of your application is written in Lambdas, and you're a Terraform shop. So you kind of think, well, we want to do everything with Terraform. When it talks to AWS, that is the language of choice or the framework. Another class, well, it's kind of related to one of the former case, kind of with the infrastructure is, well, in Cloud Posse, we write a lot of Terraform modules that are public. Some of those modules have Lambda dependencies. And part of the problem with Lambdas is that Lambda, like the simple case Lambda is pretty trivial. It's just like a single like Python script or Node.js file written in native JavaScript or something and Node.js and doesn't need lots of libraries and stuff. But when you get into the point where these are like full-fledged applications with lots of artifacts and dependencies, doing this strictly, entirely in Terraform isn't a pattern I've liked. What it ends up looking like is you have Terraform doing a whole lot of local execing to build artifacts, to create zip files. And those zip files are not idempotent. And every time somebody runs a plan, it's a new zip file with a new SHA. And your plan is always dirty and it always wants to reapply. Plus, this might be running on a person's machine, local machine, and how they have to have that full build set, the entire dev environment locally in order to build all those Lambdas. I don't like that either. So I think right away, one thing to consider about using Terraform with Lambdas is, do we really need to have Terraform do all of it? Or can Terraform do the parts of it that it's good at? So I'm going to show you a few options here. One is the way Cloud Posse is doing it for simple Lambdas that we distribute. This is probably not the right answer for like your core apps written for Lambdas, and I'll present some alternatives for that as well. So for Cloud Posse, we have 2 or 3 projects that use Lambdas. An easy one would be, let's see here, our Elasticsearch cleanup module. So Elasticsearch has this thing where you can create indexes all day long very easily, but you can't lifecycle those indexes out without writing another little Lambda that rotates those indexes. So we have kind of forked or borrowed another Lambda that is It's attributed somewhere in here. I forget where. For that cleanup, the Lambda is in here. So credit where credit is due. This was by Cloud Reach Europe Limited originally. So we've taken that Lambda, and what we do is we're using a GitHub action, and that GitHub action will run the targets to build that Lambda and all the dependencies and create the zip file as an artifact to this run. And then we upload that artifact to an S3 bucket. And we upload, so every single commit gets its own commit SHA and its own zip. So this is the first half of the problem. And wow, it should be that easy, right? We just publish the zip somewhere. But in our case, we have the challenge that we're publishing public zip files, and there's no way to then now instantiate that Lambda from this zip archive that we've published somewhere. So what we do is in our module is we depend on one other module called Terraform external module artifacts. So one fact about Terraform is Terraform does not provide any way to download binary artifacts from any resource. There's an HTTP provider for Terraform, but it does not support binaries. It only supports text, text plain, text HTML, stuff like that. So our external module artifact module is a very simple little hack. It does one thing that I don't like, but it's a necessary evil. So this is the entire module. Not much to it. That's why I kind of sign off on it. It depends on one binary or two binaries. It depends on that you have Git installed and curl installed, which is a pretty universal assumption. Even if you're using Terraform Cloud runners come with curl and Git. So this works. So what we do is for a module, when we instantiate a Terraform module, like the one I was just showing you here, for Elasticsearch cleanup, and we're instantiating that module for some version, and every version is associated with a commit SHA. Then what we do is call our Terraform external module artifact module to go fetch that artifact. And then once we have it fetched, then we can just do terraforming as normal with provisioning the Lambda artifact with the local file that was downloaded. And since we are using this artifact that is on an S3 bucket that is hosted somewhere, it's always stable. Our plans are not dirty. It works as a very good way of distributing our code. Now, if you're doing Lambdas for your core application, then I would reconsider this in two ways. One is Terraform still the right tool for you in your application for doing this, or should you instead be using a framework for doing it? And this is where Amazon has their I forget what it's called, the cloud framework. Somebody.
Sam?
Isn't it just called serverless?
Yeah, SAM, exactly. SAM.
Serverless is separate.
Okay.
And then there's the serverless framework, which is a separate organization. So serverless.com is that. So what's interesting about this is if you're using serverless.com, they also now have their own continuous delivery offering. So depending on the maturity of your CD setup at your company, and if you don't want to manage that process, you can use this. Just like you can use Terraform Cloud for doing continuous delivery of Terraform, you can now use serverless.com for continuous delivery of serverless in the serverless framework. And what's nice about this is that they handle the concept of like review apps. So you can open pull requests and see your Lambda app deployed separately as a standalone instance. So I think that's pretty cool. This ties in.
With serverless, beware the plugins. serverless functions a lot based on plugins. Like
Yeah.
if you need something that is not pure Lambda, you need some app sync, you need some API gateway to SQS integration or something like that. You need a plugin for it. And to their credit, the Serverless Inc., the company behind the Serverless Framework, is investing in the top plugins and is trying to help maintain them and stuff like that. But there are still a lot of plugins that are less than ideal or written in not an ideal way. They're good JavaScript plugins.
Your mileage will vary, just like with Terraform.
Yeah,
right.
And in some past projects, some very, very vital parts were handled by some very hard-coded and poorly written, but very popular plugins.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I've been bitten by that in a very intense way.
Yeah, I appreciate the real life experience there, and that is like with a lot of this stuff. It's not until you have real world experience do you come across these things. So I can't say I have as much experience as Vlad for sure. Very much a noob on the serverless framework stuff, but where it fits into with Cloud Posse's approach to this stuff is what we're always talking about, like the 4 layers of infrastructure. So layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 being predominantly in Terraform. So your foundational infrastructure and platform, your shared services, and then the final layer is your applications. And for your applications and things you're deploying, I think you want to enable engineers to be as autonomous and independent as possible. And you do that by not forcing them into the infrastructure pipeline that you're doing for the rest of the foundational infrastructure in your organization. So for serverless, what's nice about it is in the single serverless.yaml spec, the developer can express almost everything they need for their serverless app. It's built for developers by developers. I think it should be a strong consideration in your approach to doing serverless. The last 2 answers I was going to give is, okay, if everything I've said is still out the door and you still definitely want to use Terraform for doing your Lambdas, all right, here's what you can consider. The original module for a lot of this is by Clarinet Lambda. It's a Terraform module that takes care of all the complexity. It's a very heavy module. Very active module that will help bundle and deploy your stuff with Terraform natively. Inevitably, it will depend on lots of local execing and stuff like that. But hey, if that fits your model, go for it. And the other option is one by a very active community member that I'm sure half of you know, Anton Babenko. He's a very influential terraformer. He has tackled this head on with serverless.tf. Yes, there is a .tf domain, and yes, I am pissed I did not get aws.tf. I was asleep at the wheel. Main.tf would have been pretty nice too, because every time in Slack somebody types main.tf now, I see main.tf hyperlinked. All right, so serverless.tf is one of these open source project by Anton. He's trying to tackle how to do serverless with Terraform in a clean framework kind of way. And he's invested a lot in the README and has probably some examples here. Check it out. Oh, I guess this is really not yet.
No, that's just the website. If you go back, you're going to see all the components. There is something green somewhere. Supported AWS services in the upper right.
Thank you.
I can say that I'm seeing a lot of people looking seriously at this because they are the same Terraform modules. They follow kind of the same patterns as most Terraform AWS modules. Yeah. They're relatively maintained, and I saw large spike of interest in this, but it's still super new. Yeah, well, the project is super new. Some of the modules have been there a while.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like this is a top level project on the Terraform AWS community modules. So that's cool. Excited to see that that this is going to be addressed, and hopefully there's a good.
So I have very little experience with serverless, but I have a lot with Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
And Kubernetes has like OpenFast or Knative. Like, what's the thought process on let's run serverless, on Kubernetes, or let's use one of these services or whatever, like Lambda?
Don't do it. I've background. I've tried to do it for quite a long period of time at a previous client. It is a very uphill climb. We were IBM Cloud. So IBM Cloud has a serverless thing equivalent to Lambda, which is running on OpenWhisk, which is fully open source. You can basically run IBM's Cloud Lambda service into your own Kubernetes cluster or OpenStack also, I think. There are all of them are very, very hard to maintain. I mean, the whole advantage of serverless is you don't have to maintain anything, and you get a bunch of integrations with the services that you all already using.
Well, we say
Lambda,
serverless, like, can we qualify just since there's this framework?
Okay,
that's an overloaded term. So I'm getting.
So you have a function, and that is integrated with a bunch of events. In AWS, that is SNS, SQS, whatever.
Yeah.
In Kubernetes, those would be API calls or stuff that's coming in from Q. There are usually connectors for stuff like RabbitMQ and things like that.
Yeah.
But again, the experience around it, the level of management, you need teams that are very, very in-depth into that.
Yeah.
Most likely, you will start contributing to some projects,
Yeah.
but there are companies that do it. I've only seen it be successful in large companies that they wanted to do machine learning in a serverless way, and they ended up going with, what was it? There's one, well, at least there was one framework that also supported GPU and was doing a lot of stuff around machine learning.
Okay.
But I wouldn't do it. Also, I would, for doing Lambda functions, I would also look at Stackery. They're also paid service, but they have a really, really nice graphical designer. It's outputting CloudFormation and it's giving you CICD and some stuff around that. But their graphical stuff is absolutely amazing.
That's cool. The visualization of kind of what your Lambda architecture.
Yeah, you can just design your services and, oh, I have a Lambda, let me just tie it to an API gateway. It's literally one button. It shows you all the options that you can set very, very quickly. In serverless, serverless framework, you have to scroll through pages of YAML.
Yeah, walls of YAML. Okay, that's good feedback.
Yeah. So one thing I'd add, we're using serverless for some of our projects, is that you don't have to pick just one either. One of the nice things we found about serverless is it's able to pull config values for that YAML, because serverless in the end outputs CloudFormation that gets run, right? But it's like YAML syntax has a way to pull secrets from anywhere. So you can use Terraform to build the stuff it's good at, store the values you need in SSM, for example, encrypted, even if you want, and then your CICD can run the serverless framework, grab those secure values from SSM, pull it into the CloudFormation stack and deploy it. So, we kind of have a pattern at our company where we let Terraform take care of all like the shared resources, like the RDSs, the queues and things that are going to have to interact with other stuff besides the application itself. And everything from the Lambda forward to the customer generally is handled by serverless. And that allows the developers to be the least blocked, like things we need to secure, like data and stuff like that we want to use our normal patterns for, can be done in Terraform, which is really good at. And then everything like that they're going to modify the most, the API gateways, the rules, the Lambdas themselves can all be handled by serverless. And they just pull in that, we just have that shared interface of like SSM in this example, but it could be anything that serverless supports. So that's also kind of an interesting pattern. it kind of fits into your application versus foundational infrastructure layers.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just to highlight one of the operative things you said there was just saying like serverless ultimately the serverless framework, serverless.com stuff compiles down to CloudFormation templates that you can then deploy however you prefer to deploy those templates. Whether you continue to use the serverless CLI tool, that's cool, or you can now pass that template to Terraform and have Terraform provision the CloudFormation for you. So. All right. Well, we are basically out of time. Any last thoughts related to the serverless thing before we wrap things up for today? So I'm sorry, there's a lot of other questions we did not get to today. Well, let's see. Man. No, yeah, we're just out of time. I'm not going to be able to get to these before we run out. But I definitely want to get to your question, Eric, about ensuring the kubectl command when called in Terraform with local exec will succeed. Do take a look at our EKS module where we have a fix for that. And I do want to talk more about perhaps some of these other ones that we have. So stick around next week if you want to get the answers to some of these other questions that have come up. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. We had a great conversation here talking all about serverless. Remember, a recording of this will be posted in a few hours to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/cloudposse. Or you can tune into our podcast at podcast.cloudposse.com. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to get some personal consultation with Cloud Posse, I encourage you to reach out. Go to cloudposse.com/quiz. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to book a session with me and look forward to hearing from you. Anyway, see you all next week, same time, same place. Be safe.